At the outset, I would love to thank Balaji and Somnath to be part of this panel, and that makes this a very illustrious panel for us as Thoucentric, and as part of our first webinar, Thoucentric Analytics webinar. And it's a privilege and honor to have you on board this afternoon. We do look for a very fruitful 1-hour conversation or so. And with that, I'll just give a brief introduction to our panelists this afternoon. We'll start with Balaji. Balaji has more than 22 years of experience in driving technology-led transformation programs across industries. And he is currently the CIO of Tata Consumer Business and Products Business. And prior to this, he has been in multiple, he's been on the other side of the fence, where he was with part of IBM, solutioning and helping clients as large as his business, meeting different technology needs, right? And he has a fairly illustrious background. He has an engineering degree from NIT Surat and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. We're really privileged to have you, Balaji, on board today. And we welcome Somnath Das, who is the Chief Director Supply Chain Nivea India at Beiersdorf. He's been there with them for about almost close to 2 years now. And previous to that, he was heading the supply chain planning and logistics with Marico for almost more than a decade. He has, again, close to more than 2 decades of experience. He holds an engineering degree from NIT Tiruchirappalli and MBA from IIM Calcutta. And that's what I was telling them just before we started this session, that there seems to be extremely intriguing similarities in their background. And so thank you. It's a privilege and honor to have you on board, Somnath.
Thank you, Neelakshi.
We have Sid here, who heads our analytics practice. Sid has been with us for almost 3 years now. And previous to that, he started the analytics practice, of course. Now it's history, Sid, so let's have a different introduction for you. But yes, he heads the analytics practice for Thoucentric, and previous to this, he joined us from IBM, and he's been in the analytics space from when analytics was not such a buzzword, right? He has, again, more than 20 years of work experience, and has probably worked in all facets of analytics, descriptive, prescriptive, predictive, cognitive, and all the tips of analytics, of which I don't understand much. But thank you, Sid, for joining Thoucentric and being the pioneer of starting the webinar series for Thoucentric. It's an honor to have you on board as well. We have Ashok. He has close to 2 decades of experience again. He's been with Thoucentric for close to 4 years now. And previous to that, he has had multiple transformation leadership roles with Ericsson, with SAP. And for us, it's a very simple introduction. When it comes to supply chain, he's the go-to person. He manages the supply chain solutioning practice at Thoucentric, and you name it, anything with supply chain, and you'll almost get exhausted with the answer from the other side. So just watch out. Okay, thanks Ashok for being part of this panel.
Thank you, Neelakshi.
I'll move very quickly to the topic so that we get to hear from this illustrious panel. For a change, my role is of a moderator, so I'm itching to talk less, and that's not very characteristic for me. Yeah, but I will try hard to keep my mouth shut. Okay, so as we all know, the topic today for conversation is the impact of AI, ML technology or emergent technologies in business transformation, right? So I will request each one of you to give an opening statement on what you think um, is your vision or your understanding, and a one-liner opening statement from each one of you on this topic, and then I will move on to the next question. So let's start with Balaji. Balaji, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Right. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, Balaji. Yeah. Thanks, Neelakshi. Looking forward to an exciting discussion. Quickly, AI/ML definitely a buzzword, but I think we are largely seeing impacts of that. From my perspective, a very simple understanding: AI/ML is really what you do with data. There are lots of things that you do with data. AI/ML is probably the best and greatest of what you can do currently from a technology perspective with data. And again, what I would like to kind of make sure that everyone understands and realizes, it's not really what we do with AI and ML, it's really what's the business impact, and that's really my area of focus and what I would like to look at and learn from this session as well.
Thank you. Somnath?
Yeah, thank you, Neelakshi. Good afternoon, everyone. Superbly excited to be in the post-lunch session now. And also a privilege to be part of this discussion where we have, practitioners, experts, and of course a senior right here, whom I met a few minutes back. So, super excited to be part of this discussion. In simple terms, I definitely believe AI, ML, while it sounds buzzword in the current scheme of things, but these are not probably things which have been there in the recent things. They have been there for quite some time, in some form or other. Right, I think it's more about how the manifestations and the usage of this is now spreading into newer use cases, and as Balaji has rightly mentioned, it is business first, and how do we leverage these technologies to enhance our business results. I think that's what counts the most.
Thank you, Somnath. Sid?
Yeah, if you can hear me. Yeah, I wish I could say like Balaji that AI/ML is a buzzword, but I can't. I don't have that wherewithal. It's how I earn my living. as simple as that. And thanks to folks like Somnath and Balaji, we get driven real hard, and we are being driven real hard, and even in this pandemic times, to come up with the right kind of forecast. So it's definitely not a buzzword for me. And yes, I mean, as Balaji and Somnath say it's about business first. How do we keep the lights on in business? And what is it that we need to do and in what measures so that we keep on reaping the goodness. So that's what it's for me. Thank you, Nilakshi.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to be part of this conversation. AI ML used to be a different domain a few years back, at least when it came to supply chain solutioning. Last couple of years, the boundaries have been blurring quite a bit in many use cases, and not only as an advanced version of supply chain analytics, but an inherent part of supply chain planning itself. AI/ML is taking a significant place in solving core supply chain problems, and I totally agree with the other comments from our business leaders and Sid as well.
Okay, that brings us. So I mean, thank you all for your comments. One of the things that has been, I think, very intriguing, and I would love to hear from the demand side of the market, especially you being our esteemed clients as well, as to what has how have you, over your digital journey with your respective businesses today, what efforts have you taken to make the business ready for transformation? And where are you in this journey? What do you think is the way to go, given the industry perspective, and how this has become an imperative part, as most of you are agreeing today in this conversation, of doing business?
You want to go first?
Yeah, please. I mean, now it's free flow, so go ahead.
Yeah. So, Balaji, you're going first. You want me to go first?
Go ahead, Somnath.
Yeah. Right. Great. So, just to reflect on this, when Neelakshi spoke about this topic, and it was a good, kind of a reflection of what has been the journey that I witnessed in the current organization as well as in the previous organization. As we all know, the whole journey starts with simple digitization. Digitization, a sweep of that has taken over the industry for the few years, both in terms of digitizing the various forms of data, whether is it in supply chain in terms of replenishment and logistics planning, or digitization in terms of our data sets that we get from our manufacturing locations. I think both the sides, the whole digitization journey has been very strong, and I think we are now sitting on a wealth of information and inputs which now needs to be harnessed and reaped for benefits for the industry. So it all started with the whole digitization effort, and then slowly, we have also seen how these simple inputs or data sets were actually looked at, visualized. So various platforms which are popularly available. I think the business gained a huge leap forward with by simple visualization of this various source of data, various data interpreted in ways that can be used and actioned out. I think that was the next big leap that happened. One was the digitization, and second was obviously when we use this data in a visual manner on various platforms that were very friendly and handy in the current stage. The next stage is where we are in a journey where we are looking at, and I think a lot of organizations are at this stage where we are doing the right visualization, and that itself, in my opinion, gives a huge bump up. But post that, I think as we see in the recent last 3 to 4 years, we have seen a lot of changes happening in the industry context. We have seen competition taking a very different dimension. We have seen external disruptions happening far more rapidly, and it is as I would say, is become a new normal. uh, every year in India, especially if you look at, at least there are 4 or 5 big events, and not to talk about the pandemic in the recent days, but if you look at the last 3 to 4 years, there has been at least 4 to 5, big disruptions across the country. Maybe not throughout the country, but at various parts of the country, which would impact us nationally as a business. And with this, multiple solutions, multiple BCPs, multiple ways of doing business also have arisen and taken shape. Now with this whole new ways of doing things, whole new whole new models of replenishment, whole new models of ensuring supplies, whole new models of of looking at data. I think the role of machine learning, the role of AI and ML and new technology takes a significant leap forward. Here, when I look at the journey, I think many organizations and many other organizations that I have worked in the recent past or in the current organization, this is the journey that's where we are on path with. Right? So that has in brief the journey for me. Starting from digitization to visualization to using new technologies like AI and ML to look at. I think one of the popular areas of usage, apart from the manufacturing side, has been in the areas of demand forecasting, and that has been an area which has been very largely popular and comes as a first go, right? But I sense that with new learnings that we have in the last 3 4 months, I think we are going to land up and open our when we go back to office, we are going to open go back to a world which is far different from a supply chain perspective, right? And we'll have far more newer points of information, sources of data, ways of replenishment, ways of touching our consumers and customers, and probably our ability to harness the data and take action. So not only visualize, not only get insights out of them, but how can you actually real time get take actions, I think that would actually make our organizations something that will stand apart. So, nutshell, that's the journey, and that's how I look into the future. As we proceed, probably I can break down into probably what are the big changes that I look at in the next 2 to 3 years at least.
Yeah, this is Balaji here, kind of echoing Somnath's thoughts a little bit. But then the way I look at it personally is, and if you go back and look at history, you see that we are very lucky to be part of several inflection points. And I'm not talking about the COVID pandemic here, but as part of the internet age or computer age or whatever you might want to look at it. I guess this generation is at a point of time where a lot of transformation is heavily dependent on technology, right? And starting from the 90s, which you could very broadly classify as a ERP era, when there was a lot of focus on automation, trying to kind of connect islands of information and making sure that, and a lot of focus happened on data from a master data perspective, because everyone knows that if you don't have the right master data, you can't really connect, and that was the ERP age. If you look at the 2000s, if you will, the next decade, and I know I might be talking in terms of clean separation. It is never always like that, but it helps to kind of think of it from a perspective point of view. 2000, that period, that decade in my mind is all about CRM and customer centricity, and not really looking at internal data, but looking at it of how you look at the consumer, your customer, how do you bring that back in, and how do you really drive business value, not from a cost takeout only, but also from trying to be more closer to the consumer, customer, and be able to understand them, right? So that was that part of it. When we came to the 2010 onwards, in my mind, we tried to say that we've got the enterprise planning, and we've got all of the automation, and we continue to do work. We've got data from a consumer perspective. Can we go back and revisit how we do our planning? And then all of this little bit coincides with technology as well, right? And then the whole in-memory computing and the ability to kind of run in memory meant that you could really focus on supply chain planning and bring the benefits from a data perspective, whether it is consumer demand or it is your internal processes and systems, and make that more relevant to an organization and drive benefits, right? From my point of view, I guess the next 10 years is going to be about data, right? And when we look at the underpinning of AI/ML, which is really neural networks, right? It's to say that you've got a wealth of data, and what do you really do with that data, and how do you leverage it, and which is why I guess you see a lot of digital transformation now being in the area of analytics, right? And there is a lot of old wine in new bottle as well, in the sense that you're looking at, I really don't have a good ERP installation. I don't do my supply chain really well. I don't have consumer data. So to me, the true transformation is really around data analytics, AI, ML, right? And then people who have done good work in the last 3 decades are well positioned to take advantage. Those who have not have to go back and fix their core, and then they look at how they can leverage it, right? So and how quickly they can do that is really what we need to focus on, right? So that's sort of my two-cent.
Yeah, I just have an add-on question, Ashok said, if you don't mind, since we're at the brink of a very current, pertinent topic. Most of you have, and I just love the way you flew the conversation from how it was and how it is today. But really, if we talk about now, do you think that time within which we need to react and how we can really the word transformation has a whole different meaning now with the kind of situation that we are all in, right? So do you think that acceleration is probably of a very different nature, and maybe not with respect to time anymore, in terms of how we will react and what kind of digital transactions can help solve those problems?
Yeah, this is Balaji here. So it's a good question because we always talk about the fact that transformation needs to be fast, rapid. It is getting more complex, but is it in terms of time? So to me, digital transformation, true digital transformation, is not a ERP or CRM or dashboards, or it's not analytics. It's trying to look at 1 or 2 or 3 things. And in most cases, are you changing the business model, right? So if you're trying to open a new channel and then that's a digital channel, then obviously it's digital business. So I would say less is more. So and then that's when you can be rapid. From my point of view, when organizations have a digital roadmap, they talk about 5, 10, 15 projects, right? There is a mix of traditional projects, and there is a mix of fixing what's gone, what we've not done so well, which is good. I'm not saying that's wrong. You need to do that, but there are only 1 or 2 or 3. And what is it that you want to chase in the next 2, 3, 5 years, and what is it that you want to get ready? To my mind, if we can get an answer to what are those business problems that you're really looking to solve, or what are the new areas of business that you want to get in, where you need to transform how you work, that to me is digital transformation, and then that's where you need to put all your energy in. Right? So that's what I don't know if that's
Neelakshi, I'll just add a few things. So probably say the same thing maybe in different words. To be very honest, a lot of this transformation that we have seen, in some of the organizations, also have been, one is definitely to actually explore and, dip our feet in and, experience that and, probably get into the bandwagon. And some set of initiatives were also to actually solve, business problems, right? In the coming years, and especially once we go back to office, I think the theme definitely I see would be about simplifying, simplification of our networks, simplification of processes, and the learnings that has been in the last at least 3 to 4 months has been that how do you build new ways of reaching to your consumers and customers, right? So that would be another thing that would definitely come in, and we will see a lot of movement happening there as we speak. A lot of new models of doing business and channels are being discussed. People are experimenting. Obviously something or other is going to strike it big. And I think there would be organizations who are enterprising enough to look at those new opportunities, and I think there will be a lot more use cases for use of this new technologies there. So obviously as we have mentioned earlier that it would be in the context of the business obviously, but whether technologies itself can open up new ways of doing things, we'll have to watch out for that.
Yeah, I'll move over to the other side of the panel. Ashok said, so what we are trying to say is what used to take, when there were transformation program, that was a big word there, at least 3-4 years ago. And anything that we are now currently in a big transformation program, which was like 3 years, minimum 2 years, at least 1 year program. And if it was an ERP kind of a solution or a big solution like that, it used to take, and Ashok, you're from the SAP world, it used to take minimum 2 to 3 years to even stabilize with those kind of initiatives in companies, and they would not focus on anything else for that time period. But now we are talking about solutions which are customers like Nivea, like Tata Consumer Products are looking at solutions which can help them augment their business in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So what do you see as the answer from your side? Is the industry ready, and are we nimble enough to be able to make up for that kind of need?
Yeah, Ashok, you want to have a first go? Go ahead.
Sure, sir. Yeah, maybe I'd like to respond in 2 parts. Situation prior to the COVID scenario, and then maybe talk a little bit about standing where we are right now, how it looks like. So even prior to the COVID scenario, the awareness of AML applications, at least in the supply chain solutioning space, was improving quite a bit by the day. And quite a bit of our stakeholders were very informed about potential applications and potential benefits, and they had started foundational work like maybe cross enterprise solution integration, setting up a data lake, or looking at different visualization platforms, advanced visualization platforms, which had prescriptive capabilities as well, some amount of AML components. and so the awareness was growing quite fast, and there were very pointed requirements. Therefore, the journey would have been um, faster compared to 10 years back, even without the COVID scenario. But standing where we are today, I think I've heard quite a bit about some marginal use cases that we had to speak to customers. Now, hearing from the customers, for example, a computer vision use case in warehouse, or a digital twin application to scenario planning. These are use cases where we had to speak to customers about. Now, in the last 6 to 8 weeks, we have heard at least a dozen customers talking about these requirements themselves, right? So, all of us know demands and IT investments would be the first to take a hit when there is a hit in the business environment. But at least with respect to requirements in the AML space, which are business outcome based, we have not really seen any kind of a slowdown. In fact, I would even say the pace of the conversation and very pointed discussions has actually increased. So it's really exciting times in terms of the different kind of interventions we will get to do in the near term from a consulting and a solution delivery perspective. But I think we are on a real fast track mode as of now. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ashok. That was very helpful, I would say. And I think Balaji summed up the data journey, or should I say the data science journey, very nicely. It began with the 90s being the era of ERP and emphasis on master data, 2000 being about CRMs, and 2010 being about digital transfer. No, not 2010. 2010 was about analytics on a chip, as propounded by SAP. So these concepts were kind of unheard of in the 90s. I mean, and again, I agree with Balaji that essence is to keep it simple. But to keep it simple is for someone like me is a rather convoluted journey. It begins with visualization. And as Somnath was saying, the corporate databases have been bursting at the seams, and there are tons and tons of data which are waiting to be visualized. Now, visualization gives you the impetus to dig deeper, and from that story on, come up with the nugget which can change the course of the story or change the story itself. So that's the basis that will always remain. Now, coming to way things are done, way analytics is done. I mean, there's been a lot of there. I would say there's been phenomenal changes. I won't do analytics the way I used to do it even 5 years earlier, right? Today I get requests from clients, say I built a model for one country. Can you kind of lift and shift it let's say in 2 weeks time and adapt it to another country. Now these kind of requests were unheard of just even about 3 years ago. As late 3 years ago. Now it's a reality. Now we as data scientists cannot hide behind the fact that, hey, we need historical data. I mean, so we have to evolve. I mean, and be ingenious in our approach to solving problems. So big challenge. And again, then as Ashok mentioned, it's pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Post-pandemic times are scary, but at the same time enlightening. I mean, there are newer ways of solving problems. And we rose up to the challenge. We put together a COVID engine, or a BA, Black Swan engine, or BS engine as we call it, in real quick time. We challenge ourselves and we try to attack, tune it to the way we are doing things for our clients. And we saw the results. The results astounded us. So yes, we have to roll along. We have to adapt. We have to adapt new tools and tackles. The cloud is a big equalizer. It's new, frighteningly new at that, and it took even data scientists, what you call seasoned data scientists, time to adapt to the intricacies of cloud. But what cloud brings to the table is kind of is enormous in scope. So I would say, yeah, challenging times, stressful times, but yet interesting times. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the COVID impacts in a bit. So that was from me, Neelakshi. I think.
Sure. Thank you. So I'll move on to the next question. More in terms of the digital disruption initiatives that you have taken as part of your business initiatives, right? How has been the team building exercise? Has that been a struggle? Have you been able to figure how to build appropriate teams to be able to meet those business needs?
Balaji, you'd like to go first?
Sure, sure. Uh, it's a difficult question because I don't think there is a very generic way to create teams. Um, the challenge that I have faced uh, is to really put together a job description of what we need on a team that's going to drive a digital transformation, right? Because it's not a ERP or a CRM or a supply chain where it's been done before. Most of the time when you're doing transformation of this nature, there is a little bit of newness, a first of a kind, not from a technology perspective, but you're trying to solve a problem that's unique, right? So you need people from the business, you need people who understand technology, and you need someone who's going to be able to marry these two together, and you need someone to kind of run and manage the project. So the mix of skills is so diverse. The set of people who are on such teams um, are not typically clear about what they are expected to do. And how long the team exists for. Is it full time? Do they go back to their day job? What is the day job? So the challenge is defining for each of these initiatives what is it that you need in the team, and there is a little bit of unstructuredness, if you will, right? So we want people to come and in some cases detail out the problem. We want people to find solution. We want to do some experimentation and trials, right? So there are various things, and a lot of times the scope for a transformation project is not really defined till you really start doing the project, right? So to me, if it were to say that this is really what you need, I can go back and ask leadership and management saying, this is what I need, please give me a team. But it's being able to articulate what you need. Uh, that's really the challenge that I see from a team perspective. So sorry, I don't think I've got an answer to your question, but it's more of restating the problem back, and then maybe there are other panelists, other people who solve this, but I've not really been able to solve it for myself.
It's a conundrum. It's a conundrum because to be able to have that mental landscape, to free the real estate of your mind, to look at it from a completely different perspective when you have daily, chores to run in your business. It's not an easy task, right? And that's at least what I would have imagined. Somnath, please, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So I mean, from the few transformation journeys that I've been in, particular in my previous organization, yeah, yes, it is. As Balaji has mentioned, I think the identification of the right talent, and more importantly, how do you take care of the person's career pre post, is a conversation which is an ongoing challenge, because many a times you get to really know the depth of the project once you get very close to for the kickoff and so on and so forth. So I think managing talent and planning for their continuity, I think is a critical aspect, because we tend to look at as the matrimonials in the newspaper. There's a kind of characters that we want to look at. So, but obviously we have to go with the reality, right? The other big part which I have kind of experienced, and I want to highlight here, is there is this whole technical aspect, but there's a whole business understanding which is important, which is definitely there. But more than that, in this kind of transformation, you need people with the right soft skills, right change management mindset, so as to go through this whole journey. And in supply chain, with my limited experience, I have found that more than the tools and tackles, and more than solutioning process and all that, the whole change management piece takes a huge part of credit in terms of where the project goes, whether it becomes a success or not, right? So I think that's one unsaid part which becomes very important. And how do you get the right set of people for managing that, becomes critical. I think, that takes a huge priority than probably even, expertise or, a technology, understanding. So that's one. But, having said that, we in live organizations often have this struggle in terms of, whether you have a continuous team, how do you, kind of, staff them, how do you keep them challenged continuously? Because, this transformation maybe would run for 2 to 3 years, and then you'd like to take a pause, and then, assimilate the benefits, and then get into the next thing, right? So, and then obviously the next thing might be completely different from what you have done in the past. So how do you manage the continuity? How do you, staff these teams, whether you take them out from their day jobs, and how do they go back? I think these are the challenges that are the real, answers. But, what I've best seen, where, little bit of success we have had, we have taken people from the business. We have had talents who are cross-functional and, made people responsible across the boundaries, and, that's also helped us from a change management perspective as well. So I think, it it would not definitely lie in a technology or supply chain domain. These talents would also proactively, come from domains where we are solving the problems as well.
I'm going to flip the question a bit for Sid and Ashok, and one of you can speak if you want to sum it up. Basically, what do you think is the best skill set that you would look at, because you guys are day in and out helping build those solutions, right? Which are paramount to adopt to the digital part or the AIML in solutioning.
Sure.
So that can sort of aid a little bit to our client, to the other side of the business as well.
Yeah. Speaking strictly about analytics, while skills, I would definitely look at core skills, which is the knowledge about machine learning, knowledge about the different tools and tackles, right from visualization all the way to modeling, the Pythons, R's and Pythons, the open sources, etc., etc. So working knowledge is essential, but above all, I look for that spark or passion, because it's passion that sustains you. If you are the kind who gets so kind of let down by when you're not able to solve a problem, and then you're so scared that you don't want to come back to it again, then possibly you lack passion. So passion is the guiding beacon that I look for, and fortunately I've been very lucky on that count. All the guys that work with me are passionate, they're committed individuals, and they're willing to go the whole hog. So in one word, passion. Ashok.
I think Balaji, Somnath, and Sid covered most of the points. I'd like to highlight one aspect, which is the ability of the team first to acknowledge that an AI ML or a digital intervention project is vastly different from a similar scale project, maybe a global ERP re-implementation, right? So we know that it is a iterative, incremental and participative solve compared to a waterfall handover requirements, wait for UAT kind of a thing, right? So it's a mindset change that is fundamentally required. Excuse me. Sorry for that. It was my kid, and yeah. So that's the fundamental aspect from a skill set. Otherwise, being ability of the team to give quick and timely feedback, especially this being an iterative solve, we'd like to get feedback from the business teams as early as possible. And of course, like Balaji and Somnath highlighted, a very strong understanding of the business and drivers of the outcomes of this particular project is as essential as any other project.
I'll quickly move to the other part of the discussion, since we have about close to 15 minutes or remaining, and I'm sure we would like to open it up for questions, right? So with this whole COVID situation and the lockdown that has that we have all had to be a part of, a series of unfortunate events that have happened. Um, has there been extremely strong reprioritization in your business, or or are you looking at let's wait and then adopt approach? Which one would you want to do as a business leader? What what are you thinking as of now? Because I'm sure it's one of the most challenging times, running large transformation programs for your businesses. Are you saying wait and adopt and then let figure out what others are doing and then let me follow, or are you willing to do some quick reprioritization, or you already done that?
You want to go first?
Sorry,
Not-
Balaji, you saying something?
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry. So I'll go ahead first, right? So from a business perspective, obviously, a lot of thinking is happening, and that eventually we'll get to see, when it hits in the outside world. But when I speak to my peers, friends in the industry, I think 2 3 things very strongly come out. One is that how do we simplify our own network, both in terms of supply and distribution, and so on and so forth. So I think that simplification theme is going to be something which is going to be very very critical. More in terms of how do we look at automating things, how do we move out of non-essential activities, and so on and so forth. That theme is definitely simplification, redefining our processes so as to be are far leaner and thinner and agile to take care of things like this. There is one piece which I am sure we'll see through. I mean, you'll also see a lot of these people, a lot of us actually taking out those spiral bound booklets or files out of the desktops regarding the consolidation of warehousing and all that, and having a relook at that. And I'm sure that's going to happen, right? So that's one piece. Simplification would be a theme that would run things. So I think there is a lot of complexity that we have built into ways of doing things. Probably there will be a very strong unwinding of that complexity, right, from this thing. However, there would be a very strong look at go-to-market opportunities. Fortunately, unfortunately, we are also seeing a lot of shake up in the in our customers space or part of the supply chain on our way to reaching our consumers, and a lot of channel redefinition and ways of work is going to change, and that's what we see in the horizon. Whether it's going to happen in 2 months time or it's going to happen in 6 months time, but that the writing is very clear on the wall that there is going to be some amount of shake up there. So how are we best positioned to take care of such changes in the market? One simple thing which we all know, and which we have seen, is that the whole e-commerce piece has really bumped up. Not only in India but all over the world, right? So whether there would be focus on e-commerce to grow that business and make it a bigger part of the business, and what are the implications for the organizations and also for solutioning, becomes a big question. So that's the second part which I was mentioning is about the complexity. One is about simplification, and second is about complexity arising out of this new ways of reaching out to our customers and consumers. Right? So that's third thing which I feel, at least for the next 2 to 3 years, with the impact of this whole pandemic thing, there will be a huge amount of near-time volatility, right? And we would be looking at trying to understand that volatility at different levels and with different hierarchies, whether we are looking at volatility at customer or at a distributor or a retailer level, or we are looking at volatility at warehouse level at a national level. So there will be multiple hierarchies of looking at the volatility, and probably the ways and strategies for managing this volatility would be a very important space wherein all of us would be working at. And there is no silver bullet for that. It has to be in terms of understanding the volatility better, predicting better, in terms of it is with regards to having our assets ready to probably absorb this kind of volatility, and also a team with the right mindsets to continuously work on change, which is going to be in the change in the short term. It would be another set of things that I see. So, three things that comes to my mind: simplification of processes, assets, structures, so on and so forth. Second thing is in terms of complexity that would arise in our value chain as we reach our consumers and customers. There will be many ways and multiple ways which will be coming up. Consolidation, and, in the channels. That's the second piece. And third piece is near-time volatility in multiple hierarchies. How to understand that better and how to manage it through multiple ways of multiple strategies. These are the things that I feel would be the priorities for many of us, and definitely priority for me.
So a quick 1 minute response from my perspective. So first of all, I guess the pandemic is really proof of pudding as far as I'm concerned from a digital perspective. The speed at which almost every company got everyone working from home. I guess I've not heard of a single company that said I've come to a standstill, right? It was a matter of a days and a week at max where people were all on board and productivity actually gone through the roof, right? So it's really amazing how technology and digital have made such a difference that people now realize that offices are not required anymore, really speaking, right? And if you think about it, a situation 5 years back, was home broadband as good? Probably not, right? So in 5 years, we've got to a point now, things are accelerated. And there is only, and I'm sure everyone on this call knows really, I'm sure each one of us are working more, are working harder, there's more things to do, and we're able to spend some time with family as well, more than earlier, right? So we've got to a point, the way I look at it, forget about prioritization, forget about taking a pause. I guess it is only going to accelerate digital transformation, and people now see the benefits. It's crystal clear, right? So that's I wouldn't see this from a business and transformation perspective. This is not even a speed bump, right? And all of the agility, all of the changes really came to the fore very simply. Right? Why would we have webinars or conferences where you need to travel? We've seen this call itself, right? So what's the need? I don't need to tell someone I'm traveling and I'm going to speak to you tomorrow and I've lost. So all of those words that I'm going to take some time off, I need to go home, handle, or I'm traveling, all of those have gone off suddenly, right? It's quite amazing, right? It's quite amazing to see it unfolding in front of our eyes, right? So that's really my simple take.
Yeah, it has been a surreal experience for sure. Quick comment, half a second, Sid, Ashok.
Yeah,
I want
I'll,
to list of questions as well as we speak. Yeah.
I think I spawned a lot from both the Somnath and Balaji. So, I got a primer on last mile delivery in tough times. And here again, the incremental innovations that happened. I mean, I won't call it incremental. They were gigantic innovations that happened over a few weeks. Nivea tying up with Zomato and Swiggy as the last mile delivery channels is something which was possibly unheard of. We couldn't have expected that. And Uber tying up with Big Basket. And then again, I mean, these new innovations also give rise to new channels and which will have the inherent new demand patterns. And those need to be studied and those need to be baked into our analysis. And I mean, I'm up for the challenge. I know it's going to be tough, but I'm up for the challenge. So that's my take on what I sponged from both the panelists out there. Ashok.
Yeah.
For half a second, Ashok.
Yeah. Nothing more to add except that some specific use cases like forecasting using AI ML are probably going to be mainstream now, especially considering all the history that I have may not have any relevance at all in today's team for the next 12 to 18 months at least. So it's going to be forward-looking businesses based on expected customer behavior and driver of sales in the new world. Therefore, applications, especially in the forecasting space, are probably going to be mainstream very soon.
I have an interesting question. I'm just moving a little bit to the question answer section as well. I mean, it's a lovely question from Meenal. So, do emotions play any role in creating and managing teams? And have your workplaces created safe spaces for people to be vulnerable and expose their emotions? And in what way? It's a subject very close to Thoucentric heart, by the way. But yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think it's very apt and appropriate. Uh, and when people come onto the team, there's always uncertainty, right? And then when you talk about transformation teams, and I know I'm generalizing, there are two kinds of people that come in. One, the thing they've come in because they are the best and they've been chosen to get onto a transformation project. And then there is the second type that kind of thing that I don't have a role, I don't have a clear role, and I'm being let go of to do this something different and new, right? In general, in both cases, there is uncertainty because nobody comes into a transformation team knowing everything that needs to be done, right? The only people who know everything is people from Thoucentric, right? So the people in organizations really know very little of what they're going to do. So how do you address that uncertainty? How do you look at that from an emotional perspective? Is very critical, and I guess that's where business leaders come in, and in general we don't know how to deal with when we have some unstructure in the environment. But again, Meenal, maybe good to connect offline. What are thoughts here? Because that's a very perceptive question. I don't think there are straight-jacketed answers, and I don't think anybody in digital transformation teams are really exploring that. There are no models, there are no working structures. Often in project teams, there are no appraisals or discussions because that is left to your core people management, right? So more often than not, the emotional side is not addressed at all, at least not in a structured manner, and it's left to some individuals who see that and some relationships that might exist within the organization. So sorry, no answers, but a beautiful question.
Brilliant. Sid and Ashok, if you don't mind, I'll just move on to the next question, since the lack of time, because I'm quite sure the answers will resonate with what Somnath and Balaji have already shared, right? So we have a question from one of our principal data scientists. Considering if we have an expert panel here, both coming from the business and the technical world, would you now make it mandatory for people to adopt technical understanding as part of their, before you recruit a person on your teams, for a business role, right? Would you think hands-on coding, or back when we used to apply for jobs, when we started our quest after we passed out of college, would that become necessary now?
Okay, Ashok, you want to have a go? Then
Actually, I'll be keen to. Okay, fine, Ashok, you answer, and then we'll move to Balaji and Somnath.
Yeah.
Sid, sorry, just to.
No problem.
Yeah, maybe we'll hear from Somnath and Balaji
Fair.
first, because
interesting
consulting
question.
team, of course,
wanting to go
as
ahead.
technical you are good for me, but I'd like to hear from Somnath and
because
Balaji first.
everyone is eager to answer, I can see. So. Yeah.
So I mean, and the answer, I think, I'm sure, a lot of us will resonate with. Yes. I think, what, whether it is a transformation team or it is a team, I mean, the team is a team, right? And the organizations get created when you have teams perform, and that's how the results come, right? And I think, what we all of us know, experience that, and believe that. And as Sid has mentioned that in any team you need people with spark, right? I think that's the criteria, and I think I was also resonating with the question which Meenal was asking. Emotions, do emotions play a role? I think emotions play a big role. How do you manage that? I think there's a responsibility for the leaders to and all of us as well, to ensure that how do we have the right mindset. So that's one. Recruit. I mean, when we look at people, and any organization, when people look at we look at recruitment or getting people on board, most often than not, we do not look at people for the assignment, which the position that we are taking in for. Right? we look at people whether they would be there with us for a long time to contribute and also enrich themselves in the journey along with us. I think those are the more important criteria. Yes, there would be some very specific technical, so if we need a data scientist in our organization, obviously I'm not going to create that from the scratch. But I think in the overriding idea here or thought would be that, how, do I see the spark in that person? Do I see, how do I manage this person over a long period of time? Do I see the fungibility of the person to, provide him with a, long-term career, and, in which he or she would be able to contribute to us and also take back a lot back at home. So I think those are more important criteria than, specific technical skills. Having said that, if there are specific things that we need to solve for, those, technical skills might be relevant. But by and large, I don't think that that from a, from an industry perspective, that would be a change that I'm definitely not.
Okay, I'll quickly move on to another very interesting question. And I'm sure most of the youngsters and still young people like us, are facing this challenge in the market. Given the situation, given that there's only that much supply and that much demand equation, which is always the conundrum, but still, now is the time when people are worrying about it the most. What's happening to our jobs? What's happening to the industry? Is the market going to grow? How, as business leaders, do you think you're going to prioritize your spends? Because obviously there will be some shrinkage. Do you see this as a short-term impact, or do you see this as a long-term impact in terms of how to open up the market, the job market for people, right? Given that we are not able to anticipate, or given the uncertainty in the situation. A very quick answer, long-term, short-term, or your,
Yeah, Balaji, let me try and take that. People's memories are not as long as we think they are, and in general, the environment has rebounds very, very fast. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 months from now this will become history. It will seem like a dream. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, maybe some things will change. We might all be wearing masks, but pretty much it could happen that we just come back to working from our offices. So it's a speed bump, but it's also an opportunity, because I know at least in the technology space, the skills remain current. I don't think things have changed. Most people are just waiting and watching and are not jumping and are building scenarios. And as organizations continue to exist and then we get back to more or less normal work, I think the situation will rebound very fast. So it's a very short-term situation now that we are having, and my kind of feeling is that we'll come back near normal very quickly. Definitely, I guess by end of this calendar year.
Somnath?
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add to what Balaji has already said. I think structurally, I think if you ask me, I mean, as Balaji was mentioning, I mean, this last 2-3 months probably have been the most productive months in the full year, right? In terms of the amount of work, the amount of excitement. Having said that, it was not an easy situation. There were frustrations and so on and so forth. So I think we have managed to be up and running within a few days time. So yes, things would change a little bit as we go, from a consumer behavior point of view. But I would not be surprised if I see in the next, after a quarter's time, we see a very strong rebound, particularly in the job market as well.
Okay, so I'll another last question, and then we will just sum up across the board. Again, the question is specifically for Balaji and Somnath. Is if you were to reprioritize all your spends, what is that one area where you will concentrate for in the next 3 to 6 months as business leaders?
So I think the priority obviously would be kind of understanding more from a consumer point of view. So do we need to do any change on our ways of doing business, our portfolio, GTM, and so on and so forth. Those would be more the priorities in terms of in the next 3 to 4 months. If there is a major change, that which we all of us are anticipating in consumer behavior, if shoppers go about doing their things. So, investing on that line would be the priority. And obviously, the second level of priority would be in terms of how do we simplify things and get into more agile and leaner structure.
Yeah, no, I agree with Somnath completely. The front office, the sales, consumer marketing, etc., would be primary. So if that's not been your priority, this is the time to correct it.
Ashok and said, I would ask you to please give a half a minute summary of the conversation, and then I'll move to Balaji and Somnath before the closing comments.
Sure, Neelakshi, thank you. And I think overall, I mean, as far as I was concerned, I spawned a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas up my sleeve, and I'm that much more richer. So thank you, Balaji. Thank you, Somnath. And yeah, so the crisis has forced us to grapple with new set of challenges. But again, I agree with both of you that it's up there. I mean, we are living in exciting times, though scary. I mean, we don't know what lies ahead, but but as they say, this too shall pass. I mean, so, and so I think this is the right time to build on our reserves of emotions, reserves of of skills, and reserves of patience and goodwill. I mean, let me. I'm a technical person. Let me use. I mean, let me in this with something which is non-technical. I think this is a time to shore up on our emotions and well-being. Okay, I mean, there wasn't a better time than this. There never would be better better times than this. Don't know what else to say. So thank you, Neelakshi. I mean, I don't know if it makes any sense at all, but I just spoke my heart. Ashok.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. Just taking a cue from Sid's points, we are truly excited with the kind of problem statements and the breadth of requirements that we have been receiving in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So from a pure consulting and a selfish perspective, I think it's definitely quite excited about what we'll get to solve from where we are today. But also really hoping that we get back to visiting warehouses, factories, and stockyards that we were doing all along. So looking forward to that, and would like to thank Balaji and Somnath for this insightful discussion. I knew I had to pull a few strings just to be in the same screen as them. So thank you, and hope all of us are safe and our families are taken care of.
So be safe, stay out of harm's way. Thank you.
I'll go next. So I definitely agree to what Sid is saying. While this unfortunate thing has really impacted a lot of human lives, but I definitely see that it will also be an opportunity for a lot of us to reset, and probably relook at doing our businesses differently, simplify processes, become more closer to the consumers. So I think those are the opportunities which most of us would be looking forward to. There will be new ways of reaching out and meeting the needs of the market. There will be new ways of new use cases and opportunities to solve them. But obviously we will definitely need to stay focused. And most importantly, as Siris mentioned, it is important that we stay safe. I think that's as someone had asked this question that what kind of steps that you have taken in the organization. It has always been the safety of the people first before anything else, and I think that's important that we look out for ourselves, and we also look out for our friends and colleagues. I think it is important that we stay in touch in this important difficult times.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a good discussion. I just want to kind of end with one point. and a thought. There is always this talk about agility, but in this whole digital world, we're talking about AI ML. I just want to be clear, we're saying agility. Agility is with discipline in my mind, right? So if you're trying to look at what's the latest and greatest, trying to find the best tool, model, solution, and then say this is what we want to implement, you're coming at it from the wrong end, right? You don't want to look at a solution waiting for a problem. You want to define what your problem is and then attack it with agility. But I think the discipline is important of what you're trying to do. It's very easy sitting at home and there are multiple things coming your way to get confused. Please step back, understand what you're trying to do, completely be disciplined in this.
Thank you, Balaji, so much, and thank you to all the panelists here. Before I give my closing comment, I just wanted to tell both of you that we have some extremely good analytic sessions coming up, both from a techno-functional space. So if you want your teams to join us, we would really, I know your calendars are difficult to map, but if you could stay on for a couple of sessions, I think I can promise that you will not go, a little more wiser than now. But having said that, so it was excellent conversation. Unbelievable panelists on the board, and what I could hear and what I gathered, I'd like to sum up. So we are the consumers. We are the solution providers and we are the creators. So the boundaries between all of this are really getting blurred. The more we get closer to each other, the better we will understand business, the better we will be able to create solutions. And all it will take for us is to keep our spirits high, focus on the things that we can control, which is us and our ability and our output. And I think the rest will just take care of itself as we go along this tough journey. So keep your spirits high. Be safe and healthy. Thank you so much, Somnath and Balaji. I do look forward to having you on our session.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you, Somnath. Thank you, Balaji. Pleasure being in the panel with you.
Thank you for the audience for tolerating us. And sorry we couldn't take all the questions on board, but I will share them with Somnath and Balaji. Thank you.